Yeah, hello, welcome back to another episode of the Self-Development with Tactics without a fucking video podcast. I'm encountering certain issues with my MacBook, by the way, running on Windows at this time because of uni, and me not being able to use my camera because it says like, okay, your camera is not connected, and some error code. But the fuck, I cannot disconnect the fucking integrated camera. But okay, it is fine, it is okay. Therefore, there is no image or video of mine today. But still, I think and believe there may be something left. I don't know if there is, but there may be something left from what was it called? 4,000 Weeks. 4,000 Weeks by Oliver Burkeman. I assume. As far as I remember, I haven't finished it yet. Which is fine, which is okay, because we're going to be able to do so, or we're going to do so now. So in the end, there we go. I guess this should be fine, it should be good. Let's actually see. Distraction. You're eager for the slightest excuse to turn away from what you're doing in order to escape how disagreeable it feels to be doing it. Great. Or not great, actually. A plan is treat every such experience with the reference we would show if it were the final instance of it. I think, yeah. I have read that. Aristotle argued that true leisure, by which he meant self-reflection and philosophical contemplation, was among the very highest of virtues because it was worth choosing for its own sake, whereas other virtues like courage in war or noble behavior in government were virtues only because they led to something else. Psychotherapists call it a second-order change. That is not an incremental improvement, but a change in perspective that reframes everything. Which, I assume, can also be something really fucking great, because if you're seeing something in a certain light, and you change that fundamentally, and you're therefore seeing it in a completely new light, it feels good, it feels amazing, it feels great. Radical incrementalist originality lies. Now I remember. There is a very, very, very big paragraph, and I'm gonna read it right now. So let me do so. Originality lies on the far side of unoriginality. The Finnish-American photographer Arno Minkkinen dramatizes this deep truth about the power of patience with a parable about Helsinki's main bus station. There are 2 dozen platforms there. He explains with several different bus lines departing from each one, and for the first part of its journey, each bus leaving from any given platform takes the same route through the city as all the others, making identical stops. Think of each stop as representing 1 year of your career. Minkkinen, I would pronounce it, advises photography students. You pick an artistic direction, perhaps you start working on platinum studies of nudes, and you begin to accumulate a portfolio of work. 3 years or bus stops later, you proudly present it to the owner of a gallery, but you're dismayed to be told that your pictures aren't as original as you thought, because they look like knockoffs of the work of the photographer Irvin Penn, Penn. Penn's bus, it turns out, had been on the same route as yours. Annoyed at yourself for having wasted 3 years following someone else's path, you jump off that bus, hail a taxi, and return to where you started at the bus station. This time you board a different bus, choosing a different genre of photography and in which to specialize. But a few stops later, the same thing happens. You're informed that your new body of work seems derivative too. Back you go to the bus station, but the pattern keeps on repeating. Nothing you produce ever gets recognized as being truly your own. What's the solution? It's simple, Minkkinen says. Stay on the bus. Stay on the fucking bus. A little farther out on their journeys through the city, Helsinki's bus routes diverge, plunging off to unique destinations as they head through the suburbs into the countrysides beyond. That is where the distinctive work begins, but it begins at all only for those who can master the patience to immerse themselves in the earlier stage, the trial and error phase of copying others, learning new skills and accumulating experience. The implications of this insight aren't confined to creative work. In many areas of life, there is strong cultural pleasure to strike out in a unique direction, to spurn the conventional options of getting married or having kids or remaining in your hometown, or taking an office job, in favor of something apparently more exciting and original. Yet, if you always pursue the unconventional in this way, you deny yourself the possibility of experiencing those other, richer forms of uniqueness that are reserved for those with this patience, to travel the well-trodden path first. I very often in the past was talking about patience and patience being key, and I still think that patience is very, very, very important. But patience should not be taken as a way to deny things. In the sense of, I notice that I may not be very good at something, but I think, okay, with enough patience, I'm going to be able to get to a very high level doing that. Well, it turns out that may not really be the case, because I'm not really good at that. Period. And this then is what it is, and I can't do anything about that, because I am not good at that. So, why should one, or it's not advisable to mindlessly do something because you think it is being patient, and or just mindlessly being patient. It is, even though the author says it is just grammatically passive, there is some action behind it, because you still have to do something. So be patient in the right sense. Be patient in a way that then you're going to get to, or you are on the right path, and being patient really gets you to that path because you're having what it takes to do so. Of course, nobody knows, and sometimes we just have to try and see whether this may be the case or is the case, and then adjust. I don't really know if I'm the best basketball player in fucking Austria. I couldn't tell. I haven't played basketball that much. It wasn't that bad, but in a school environment. So, just making sense out of things, I would say. To experience the profound mutual understanding of the long-married couple, you have to stay married to one person. To know what it is like to be deeply rooted in a particular community and place, you have to stop moving around. Well, you don't say, Sherlock, but I think it is indeed one of those things that need to be said. Because people tend to and like to unsee things, I would say. Possibility shock. The startling understanding that things could be different on a grand scale if only we collectively wanted that enough. Paralyzing grandiosity. As though it is your duty to find something truly consequential to do with your time. What you do with your life doesn't matter all that much. Overvaluing your existence gives rise to an unrealistic definition of what it would mean to use your finite time well. It sets the bar much too high. It suggests that in order to count as having been well spent, your life needs to evolve deeply impressive accomplishments, or that it should have a lasting impact on future generations. Many of the things you're already doing with your life are more meaningful than you would suppose. Until now, I would subconsciously been devaluing them on the grounds that they weren't significant enough. Ask the following questions of your own life. It doesn't matter if answers aren't immediately forthcoming. The point is to live the questions. Where in your life are your work are you currently pursuing comfort when what is called for is a little discomfort? Are you currently pursuing comfort am I doing this in any field? Well, I think when it comes to personal relationships, I'm not that into discomfort. So I very often, well, maybe also just in terms of health, I really need to see a doctor, or I've had to dismiss an appointment because of uni and whatnot, and I've up to this point not been able, quote unquote, or willing to get another appointment. But it would make sense to get it because there are reasons for just being at the doctor's office. Like it's never ever just because it is so fucking funny and whatnot. Or your work are currently pursuing comfort. Well, maybe also in terms of the podcast. I mean, I could do more. I could put in more work. I could just, come up with another idea of just doing something, being a bit more creative and whatnot. But all of it is work. And at this point in time, I do have multiple things to do, not necessarily at once, but at a time. And so it's always like, what am I focusing on? What is the most important thing for me to do now? And then just, building from this point the other things or doing other things from this point. So let's see. Are you holding yourself to and judging yourself by standards of productivity or performance that are impossible to meet? What is impossible? I'm very harsh to myself. This is definitely something that I need to admit, and this is the case. When it comes to productivity, getting things done and doing things, I'm demanding a lot from me and my body and my psyche. Sometimes it kind of backfires because I do not burn out, but I feel not good, really not good. And this is also one of the reasons why I always tell people that I love that they should rest enough and they shouldn't be doing things like I'm doing them, because it is nonsensical. There's no reason why one should be doing this. Rest is as important as the work itself. Because, in the end, it is the case that your work is really gonna fucking suffer if you're not well rested. And I've seen that as well. Last week, on one day, I've just, not necessarily been able, or just not really been able to work because I was so fucking exhausted and all tired. In what ways have you yet to accept the fact that you are who you are, not the person you think you ought to be? Well, I think there's actually no part of life for me there. I don't know. I think I would say that I'm relatively well self-reflected. I know my strengths, and I do also see the uncomfortable things. Like I may not be as good as an architect as I would like to be. I definitely am not as smart as I would like to be, and so on and so forth. So there are multiple things that I'm just seeing and that I've realized in the past 2-3 years that are just the case. Also looking back into my past and whatnot, one just needs to hear the hard truth, and one just needs to admit things as they are. In which areas of life are you still holding back until you feel like you know what you're doing? Well, I don't necessarily do that in any field, I would say. I tend to just do things. I really like doing things, and this is then why I'm doing things. How would you spend your days differently if you didn't care so much about seeing your actions reach fruition? What I would do, I would rest more. I would really. And I would probably also spend a bit more time. I don't know, like, it is always difficult to say, because very often I'm just seeing that doing the work, putting in the hours, putting in the work, just doing the stuff that I need to do is what just gives meaning to life. And, well, if it wasn't always into just, trying to just get something done and whatnot, I would probably try to find quote-unquote new meaning in life and just new things that I can be doing, and I maybe also should be doing, for the sake of my mental and physical health, and also for the sake of I don't know, just being happier and just not dying. I definitely should also keep an eye on resting enough. This is for sure. Let your impossible standards crash to the ground, then pick a few meaningful tasks from the rubble and get started on them today. How to live? Quietly do the next and the most necessary thing. If you do with conviction the next and most necessary thing, you're always doing something meaningful and intended by fate. Do the next right thing. Keep to-do lists, one open and one closed. The open list is for everything that is on your plate, and you will doubtless be nightmarishly long. What? The open list is for everything that is on your plate and will doubtless be nightmarishly long. Fortunately, it is not your job to tackle it. Instead, feed tasks from the open list to the closed one, that is a list with a fixed number of entries, 10 at most. Establish predetermined time boundaries for your daily work. And the last one that you cannot see, or a few ones, let me actually fix that. Focus on one big project at a time and see it to completion before moving on to what's next. To make a difference, you must focus your finite capacity for care. And the last one, whenever a generous impulse arises in your mind, act on the impulse right away rather than putting it off. But yeah, I think it's been an amazing read, especially the last few things, so everything that I went through today, I really enjoyed it. But yeah, with that being said, I'm going to do it next time. Bye bye.